The first one is Suhatam. I think they need no introduction. Everyone knows Suhatam. And the second partner that we have is Institute of Journalists Malaysia. And these two partners have helped us pick the right topics and select the right angles of this topic to talk about. So I really hope that you would come watch the debates, not just this one, but also the other ones that we have. The debate that you will watch now is something on cyberbullying and how it should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury. The second debate later on today will be something about anonymity, whether or not we should allow people to be anonymous online. So you see right now on Facebook, Instagram, we have a lot of people passing comments without disclosing their own names, and we want to know what is the ethics of it basically. Tomorrow we will have two other debates. It will be on the first one is on whether the government should have the right to control the printing and publication licenses in Malaysia. This is a controversial topic. The second one is whether the media should be allowed to reference gender, race, and religion in their news reports and stories. Aside from the debate, we will also have two forums. The forum today will be on Anti-Fake News Act in Malaysia, whether it is a necessary evil. And to talk about that, we have some of the best human rights experts in Malaysia. These are the people that lobbied for the Fake News Act themselves, for the amendment, for the repeal later on, and these are the people that actually does the work on the ground, and they will talk about the status of the act right now and what are the good and bad things about it. Tomorrow we will talk about who's killing the Malaysian media. So in light of a lot of media agencies closing down, we have some of the best media practitioners here. We have the editor-in-chief of Malaysia Kini. We have the editor of Astro Awani. We have the senior editor of Star Online, and we will also have the GM of Karamcraft and the chairman of IOJ, which is the Institute of Journalists Malaysia himself, who will come and talk to you about the issue of sustainability and continuity of the media platforms. Okay, that's a lot of words that I've said. So I'm going to pass the mic to Izzat, who will call the debaters, and I really hope you will enjoy the debate. Please take photos and post it up online. We are MIDP. You can tag us at MIDP Today on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also use the hashtag motivated by passion and hashtag weekend of knowledge and vision. Thank you so much for coming. I will leave you to the debate. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much, Ms. Amelia, for that speech. We're very welcoming here, and we're looking forward to have a good debate. So let's start off the first exhibition debate, yeah? And the first exhibition debate, the topic is cyberbullying should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury. And with that, I would like to humbly invite all 6 speakers of the exhibition debate to please take their seats on the front. On the government team, we have Kubaran Hansraj from Taylor's College, Sila Alam from University of Technology Mara, and Hilmi Yazid from the International Islamic University Malaysia. And on the opposition, we have Hana Zawawi from the International Islamic University Malaysia, Girindran Palani from Monash University Malaysia, and Kimberly from Taylor's University. Before we start, let me just inform everyone on how the debate will roughly look like. So this is what we call the Asian parliamentary format. It's 3 on 3. For this purpose of the debate today, each speaker will be given 6 minutes to speak. During their speech, someone from the opposing team may stand up and request to ask a question called points of information. That will be allowed from the first minute until the 5th minute. And they may ask essentially whatever it is that they want to help their case or whichever that works, yeah? And yeah, that's more or less how the format is for today. So, with that being said, I would like to call this House to order. On the motion that cyberbullying should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury, I would like to first invite the Prime Minister, Kubaran Hansraj. Before we start, let me just introduce everyone to Kubaran Hansraj. So, as I said, his name is Kubaran Hansraj. He is 16, turning to 17. He is currently pursue his A levels at Taylor's College. And when we asked him, tell us something interesting about you that the audience would like to know, and he said, and I quote, "My dream is to become Hokage someday." With that being said, I'd like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister. Here. Hello, can everyone hear me?
In a rapidly developing and digitizing world, our definition of what constitutes assault must also change accordingly. Malaysia is ranked the sixth worst in the world in global cyberbullying. What is the stance on the side of opposition? Cyberbullying should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury. What is the mechanism in which we want to achieve this? Two prongs. The first, we believe that there will no longer be anonymity on social media. Individuals must provide verifiable details on their social media account so that you can fairly ascertain whether, like, who these individuals are. This is so, if we want to prosecute these individuals, it is far easier for us to do it, and it is impossible for them to hide under the veil of anonymity. Secondly, after the case is filed, the due process is exactly the same. You file a police report and you go under a judge where your punishment will be decided proportionally to the crimes that you have committed. In conclusion, we think cyberbullying should be treated much like any other crime of assault, and as a result, we should prosecute individuals that do these horrible things. The first argument is big. While in principle, we think that cyberbullying is akin to assault, and legally, we must recognize it as such. The first question we have to answer is, what is assault? Legally, assault is the reasonable apprehension of criminal force, which essentially means the reasonable threat of criminal force. So, in this instance, why is it that cyberbullying constitutes a reasonable threat of criminal force? Two primary reasons. The first, people that are likely to cyberbully you are people that you know. Why is this true? One, because individuals that you know often have the largest incentive to hurt you because they might have a personal vendetta against you. Secondly, since these people are no longer able to remain anonymous, people that are not related to you don't care enough about you or don't have enough of an incentive to bully you. But lastly, and perhaps more importantly, these are just the people on your social media account, on your Instagram, on your Facebook. These are likely to be relatives, friends, individuals that you interact with on a daily basis. Statistically, 90% of the time, we won't accept strangers onto our social media account. As a result, just on a balance of probability, these individuals are likely to be people you know. The second reason why there's likely to be a reasonable threat is because in this digitized world, unfortunately, my mother wouldn't like this, but social media becomes your life. 95% of teenagers are on the internet, based on Pew Research Center. I did my research, guys. So what I'm essentially trying to say is that social media has now become a huge part of our lives, and individuals who try to attack us on this platform is seen as individuals who are trying to attack our livelihoods. What do all these things mean? That people are very likely to feel a genuine fear that threats will occur. Because these are people that are likely to be in their vicinity, that have the capacity to hurt them and are impacting large areas of their life. In this situation, even though there may not be an actual injury physically, we think that the threat of this force already constitutes assault legally, and as a result, we should recognize it as such. But before I go on, sure.
How exactly are you going to quantify this fear and delegate punishment according to the quantity of this fear?
Alright, so that's how the legal system works, right? We go to court so we can quantify emotional and physical damages. It is based on a case-by-case basis in which we determine how much the damages or injury is. So in all these instances, we think two things need to be noted. One, there's a high likelihood of emotional injury. Secondly, if these things are allowed to escalate, much like in many public schools and in my school, it can lead to physical injury a lot of times. Specifically, given that in social media, it's very easy to rally around people and gang up on other people. We think it's highly likely not just to lead to emotional injury, but eventually escalate to physical injury. But what about cases with no injury? Because we will defend the worst case as well. But the first thing to note before going into this is that injuries are highly likely due to the reasons I outlined earlier. So, opposition cannot just say no injury means we won't have it, because in 90% of cases there is likely to be injury. If people attack your livelihood, you will feel emotionally injured at the least. But in the worst case scenario where there is no injury, why is it justified to then classify cyberbullying as assault? Two reasons. The first, much like the definition of assault now, assault by definition doesn't require actual injury to be prosecuted, but simply the threat of injury, and we think cyberbullying does that. But secondly, we think the act of cyberbullying in itself is wrong for three primary reasons. One, it's an attack on human dignity, which is to say that individuals who say horrible things about you, the act in itself isn't wrong because they hurt you, but because those things are unfair to be said to begin with. Regardless of the outcome, meaning their intention to do these things is important to be taken note of to begin with. It's the very reason why when we decide whether people should be prosecuted, we don't just take into account the outcome, we also take into account their intention in doing so. Secondly, we think cyberbullying is very likely to hurt third parties as well. Why? If you attack me for the color of my skin, just because I'm not hurt, other individuals around me who share the same ethnicity may feel offended by these comments. As a result, because there's a likelihood of high third-party harm in the war of opposition, regardless of whether there's injury on the person that's targeted, we think that we have to classify it as assault to deter. Lastly, we think it makes social media very toxic and uninclusive, which may seem like a small consequence to some, but for others who depend on it for their livelihood, whether it may be their businesses or their friends, we think it's important to make sure social media is an inclusive place. In conclusion, in cases with and without injury, we need to treat it as assault. Secondly, how does this better society? Note that people that often bear the brunt of cyberbullying are often the most vulnerable in our society, be they minorities or vulnerable teenagers discovering themselves. 34% of teenagers feel like they have been cyberbullied. 87% of young people say they have seen it online. 64% say that it affects their ability to learn and feel safe in school. How do we better their lives on proposition? The first, we deter these individuals. Often, cyberbullies are your average insecure teenager. The mere threat of criminal prosecution strikes fear in them, and as a result, they'll be more wary of what they post online. Secondly, if there is no anonymity and less cyberbullying, people feel more comfortable expressing themselves online and having a safe space online. And lastly, and this will be expounded on by my second speaker, intellectual discussions and conversations online become a lot better because people can no longer get away by personally attacking you, but rather have to engage intellectually, because if they don't, they'll be criminally prosecuted. To fight for justice and to fight for the most vulnerable, stand on the side of proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for their speech. Now, before the Leader of Opposition speak, I would like to introduce this person to everyone. Her name is Hana Zawawi, age 21, currently studying an undergraduate degree in economics at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. When we asked Hana something interesting about you that you'd like the audience to know, she said, "I enjoy sunsets and long walks on the beach." With that being said, I would like to invite the Honorable Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hello, test. Can you guys hear me? I don't disagree. I don't disagree that cyberbullying is very hurtful. We understand that cyberbullying has a lot of implications, especially when you have the capacity to cause someone to the extent of opting for suicide or things like, for example, pushing them further into mental health. But the problem is that I think that only reforming criminal assault laws is giving injustice towards the problem that is cyberbullying. I think it deserves its own set of laws for you to understand the nuances of how people are harmed online and on the virtual space. Criminal assault is a completely separate form of harming someone, and therefore I think that legally speaking, we should not punish under the same laws. Let's first and foremost talk about two things. The first, why legally speaking, you cannot punish cyberbullying under criminal assault, and secondly, why we think that alternatives are far better in helping the situation. The first argument is going to clash with a few things that Hans essentially talked about. The first thing he says is that you cannot assault someone. It's basically the metrics of how you measure criminal assault matches to cyberbullying. The first being the fact that you oftentimes know this person, and that is why you can measure the threat. I think it's extremely false, because the first thing to understand about cyberbullying is the fact that it cannot be anonymous. They cannot say that you can simply reform and make it non-anonymous, because oftentimes we work with corporations like Facebook and Twitter, which is most likely not going to cause their platform to be anonymous anyways, right? It means a few things. Is that number one, you are more likely going to be cyberbullied by random people you don't know on the internet. Even if it is not anonymous, you are also more likely going to be bullied by strangers, because people feel that if there's a distance, and by the way, social media connects people that you do not know. Therefore, it's more likely you are going to interact with strangers. Whereas platforms like, for example, YouTube and Twitter, which connects you with all of these people, that means you are going to be attacked with people beyond the realms that you know. Therefore, you cannot essentially measure the threat you are going to be received by them at the end of the day. But secondly, and most importantly, you cannot quantify the injury caused. And this is extremely important, because the reason why we are able to punish criminal assault with things like, for example, 3 months jail time or certain amounts of fine is because you can't quantify the physical injury that you essentially cause them to do. The difference with cyberbullying is because the injury, like he said, and I don't disagree, it causes emotional injury. It attacks your human dignity and things that are extremely subjective. You cannot measure this. When you go to court and you say that I am being cyberbullied, they will try to quantify your injury, but because it's excruciatingly subjective, they might be disproportionately punished, right? So because of these things, the repercussions are as such. The punishment you are going to place on them are going to be highly disproportionate. That means that this 3 months jail might not be enough, because it means that they cannot imagine the emotional harm that you essentially cause them, right? Things like that. And the way you measure these things is simply unright. When it's disproportional, all of your material and impacts, like for example, deterring the harm, making social media a single place, cannot happen because they feel like the law is unjust towards them. That is why our alternatives are far better. What is the alternative? Before that,
Your justification for not having emotional damages is that it's hard to quantify. But in status quo, in every crime we have emotional damages. Does that mean you support abolishing the idea of emotional damages in every crime?
No, of course, but the problem is that criminal assault specifically does not take into consideration emotional injury. That is why we cannot just reform the criminal assault laws, but rather use different types of alternatives. What are our alternatives? The first, we would far rather have specific cyberbullying laws that could potentially, number one, open up discourse on things like, for example, cyberbullying. The corporations that we work with in virtual space, like, for example, Facebook and Twitter. Secondly, things like, for example, understanding the situation of how it works, whether on, like, talking about like crimes that are done under anonymity, talking about crimes that are not like you essentially causing harm to people, but rather the implications of your words cause harm to people. All of these things can only be discussed if, per se, you push new cyberbullying laws to essentially be created, right? What is this? What are the other things that could be considered under this law? The first, I think, is things like, for example, the subjectivity of the harm that we essentially talked about. You are more likely going to look and consider the things that the victims go through and how exactly you want to quantify this. How you want to excuse things like, for example, injury. These are the kinds of discussions that can essentially be created in a new set of laws. But secondly, also things like how you want to deal with the idea of anonymity and not knowing the person. Criminal assault requires you to identify the person causing threat in order for you to be able to gauge whether or not this threat can be executed. Under the instance when you can no longer do that, you require people to essentially look into cyberbullying laws and understand how harm can be caused even without a face to the perpetrator. All of these things require nuance under a law, and that is why you require specific sets of cyberbullying laws. And most importantly, I think it's extremely important, and the implications of what happens when you create this new set of laws is that I think that bodies in Malaysia sit down, like for example MCMC, will allow things, and like it's more likely they will allow things like disallowing anonymity because they are more like invested in deterring the crime as opposed to just hoping the disproportional punishment of criminal assault can essentially get you there. Look, we understand cyberbullying is harmful, but it does not deserve the little airtime it does when you try to clump it with criminal assault.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to the Leader of Opposition. Just to inform anyone who just joined us, the topic of today's debate is cyberbullying should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury. Now, the next speaker, I'd like to talk about this person. Her name is Sila Alam. She is 22. She is currently doing law at University of Technology Mara Shah Alam. And when I asked something interesting about you that you'd like the audience to know, she didn't give me one, she didn't give me two, she gave me three. She can do cartwheels. She memorized all the lines in Mean Girls. And she has been stung by jellyfishes. But only two of these are actually true. Which one is the lie? You can ask her that yourself after this is done. With that being said, I'd like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister, Sila Alam.
Oops. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Obviously, the person who wrote this never had a Twitter account. I think that in today's day and age, words mean a lot, especially when people themselves put in so much meaning into what social media is, their whole self-esteem, their whole social life, all of these things are placed on that platform. And the ability for people to nearly ruin it just by sending mean tweets, just by impacting the way you look, to an extent where other people are so easily influenced as well. We think that's why governments should be as strict as possible in order for us to protect the most vulnerable. Like Han said, Malaysia is the sixth worst when it comes to global cyberbullying. 23% of Malaysian children are cyberbullied. Parents can attest to this. But also, we have so many cases in Malaysia themselves. When it comes to like a girl in Batu Kawas, Sarawak, who died, who committed suicide because even though she's been posting very terrible things, talking about how sad and how depressed she is, people didn't care and people were still mean to her. And when she made that poll on Instagram saying, should I die, should I live or not, 63% of her followers voted yes, and that's why she killed herself. These are cases in which it shows you how people lack empathy and people lack the ability for them to restrict themselves from being mean. I think this is exactly why governments should be as strict as possible, right? But let's just deal with what Hannah said initially. Number one, she said to you that it's unjust for you to treat it as the same as assault laws. But at the same time, she never told us exactly how their laws on the other side also would look like. If the punishment is also again the same, we think that's pretty much similar to whatever the laws that we wanted to also propose. But also she says things like it's unfair because I think it's like you shouldn't just put people in jail for these things. But we think that oftentimes courts are rational enough to like decide on a case by case basis. But also, like Han said, you can also measure things such as emotional damage in courts, let's say, or existing or like in existing courts. Anyways, right? Because she told you that apparently you cannot measure emotional damages. Of course you can, right? Because courts have been like allowing people to claim for all these like claim on financially when it comes to like emotional damage, because courts have acknowledged the importance of human dignity and also emotions, and what we're doing is merely an extension of that. And I think we can already use like all existing standards like reasonable man pairs, what courts use in order for us to gauge as to whether it's reasonable or not. This kind of bullying is something that can threaten the life of a person, threaten the dignity of a person. We think all these things can exist under our side. Which is said that you can also cannot make people, like corporations won't make accounts
be like non-anonymous. We think these things are possible, especially when corporations over time will listen to governments when what's at stake is the ability for them to access their markets here, especially when they themselves gain a lot of profit via Malaysians themselves using all of their platforms. We think there is an incentive for them to change. But what would I be telling you today? I'll be extending as to what Hans told you today, wonderfully, of course, as to how will this course be like would actually be caused in general, but also I'll be explaining to you in detail how does it equate to assault? How does the threat come in the form of, especially in the world of cyber? But before that,
So, what are the likelihoods that someone can affirm they're under threat, especially when they're harmed under a virtual space?
okay, which leads me rightfully into my argument, right? I think how does assault works in general in cyber world? Look, the elements of assault are just necessary too. Number one, the act was intended to cause harm. Second, act caused a certain form of apprehension of imminent harm in the victim who expects that there will be some form of a threat. But I think Hans already told you, right? Oftentimes cyberbullying occurs in like from people that you know, like your school bullies, for example, but also anonymous wise. Usually people also say things like, oh, I also live in KL, for example, and you all know KL is pretty much small, and there's 50 of them probably even bumping into people, and the thought that they are also anonymous, and is what they said, or causes you more fear and paranoia in general, because you don't know who exactly is attacking you, because this person knows how you look like, but you don't know because they have a Naruto DP in like their town, right? So all of these things causes even more harm. But how bad is it? How bad can words mean, right? Or is there, I'll just explain to you, is there imminent harm? There isn't, but the harm develops over time. And by the time that the harm is manifested into a monster and causes actual physical harm to the victim, it is already too late. Whatever that side opposition wants to propose is already too late, right? I think this policy that Hans said acts as a deterrent, right? The cruelty behind an attack in the cyber world is in how the bully does the bullying. It is mostly done psychologically. Bullies gets into the victim's head, especially since bullying doesn't have to occur in close proximity, which means you're bullied 24/7 from the second that you try to sleep, from the second that you wake up, the second your phone dings when it comes to that notification. You're scared because you know it is something that is cruel to you, right? Maybe this bully doesn't do physical harm itself, but it's like putting a gun into the victim's head, where you make a circumstance in which the victim themselves will harm themselves, the second when they are depressed, the second they do self-harm. All of these things will be manifested in general, right? People's lives are affected. But how would then this cause be like affected in general? Because as of now, there's this mentality where people are just mean for clout, people are mean for retweets, because that's how normalized it is, the idea of being mean in general. There's no impulse to be kind in order for them to be heard in general, right? This cause is oftentimes painted with people being mean in general and not actually listening to what the person wants to say. Alina Banana, who's actually very really famous local when it comes on Twitter, initially was this chirpy girl who was funny and was struggling for accepting her own body, right? But people were oftentimes telling her, she was trying to tell people that it was okay for you to look the way you are because it's what matters inside, which I think is a wonderful message. But people on the internet were so cruel, they didn't want to listen to her initial message and her discourse when it comes to body positivity, because they kept saying that she was fat and she was worthless, and led to the ability for her to even become so depressed to the point where she almost committed suicide. And even when she said that she almost committed suicide, people were still mean to her and said that, you know what, you should have just done it. All these things happen because there is no impulse and no catalyst for them to become a lot more nicer, right? Even in cases like this, we think that that's why governments should be strict as possible. We think wonderful messages get drowned out by mean comments because it's much more fun to be mean. I think this is time for Malaysia to be a lot more kinder. I think this is why you should go with government.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sila, for that speech. Now, the next speaker, the Deputy Leader of Opposition, is Yuridrin Palani. He is 24 years old. He just graduated with a bachelor's degree in biomedical science, and he is now an alumnus of the Monash University, Malaysia. And when I asked him something interesting about you that you'd like the audience to know, he said two things. One, he's a mean connoisseur, and two, he is an avid dog and cat cuddler. With that being said, I invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here, here.
Hello, hello. Everyone good?
I think that the biggest problem in this debate coming from side government is the fact of not understanding the harms of the lack of objectivity when it comes to the law. See, number one, we need to understand what actually goes on in cyberbullying. You deal with a range of emotions that are always under a spectrum. The context for this is very simple, right? Emotions, number one, exist on a huge spectrum. That means they cannot be quantified easily. But number two, they are also volatile and change based on mood. Things that people say to you or things that people counter to you by can either heighten or reduce your mood by a specific extent. This means that more often than not, the case is that moods in general are very volatile and hard to be determined by nature. But number three, it's also something that you don't have full control over, no matter how much you try, right? Let me see, if you're going through a bad day and someone just so happened to say something that tips you off, you are going to react in a bad manner. This is not something you can control, no matter how much the training you've been through, but it's just human, right? The idea of that remains is that it means that an objective standard cannot be determined specifically when you judge based on emotion in itself. This is something that the criminal justice system takes into account. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, when there is specific cases of assault, when there is specific tangible harms, that's when we are allowed to prosecute these individuals or to bring them to due process. Because we understand that there is a tangible harm towards all these kind of problems that are going through. Regarding or disregarding emotions, there's still a particular form of harm. Now, what is the biggest problem with this subjectivity, right? Number one, we think that it can't be quantified specifically. This means that side government will also have to cater to any range of what individuals think is a form of assault or is a form of bullying. That means a general statement that you make, for example, oh, I think school is a wonderful place. If someone thinks school is not a wonderful place, then they can consider that as cyberbullying. That is some of the petty things you have to deal with under your side as well, right? This means you also have to prosecute individuals who just make general comments. Like, for example, if you say the earth is not flat, you're offending flat earthers who believe that the earth is flat. And if they call you out on cyberbullying, you're most likely going to have to pander to the needs of these individuals because of the standards that you set, claiming that this is an assault or this is bullying to begin with. But secondly, a more realistic example is that in Liverpool recently, Miss Kelly J was first of all taken down and arrested because individuals found that her poster, which defines what a woman is offensive to the LGBT community, and she had to take down the poster as well. These are the kind of petty standards that you have to give into, considering that the range of cyberbullying is more often than not very petty reasons to begin with. Before I go on, yes.
In cases of abuse, we have emotional damages. I don't doubt that it is hard to quantify emotional damages. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
That is true. But my question then is, which standards are you going to use? Which directly leads me to my second point, is that even if you manage to standardize these kind of emotions or quantify these kind of emotions to come up with judgments, what is then the biggest problem with this? Is that number one, you have to then set a standard and priority as to which kind of cases you want to prioritize in the court of law, right? Because at that moment in time, you then have to prioritize individuals who can quantify a certain amount of hurt versus individuals who can't quantify a certain amount of hurt but feel that kind of hurt. This means that the standards that you set then is that the standards of hurt that individuals should feel or should not feel in order to consider their case liable for actions in court. This is specifically harmful. Why? Because number one, you actively build a standard of who is to be prioritized and who is not to be prioritized. But secondly, you also quantify the hurt that individuals should feel to be considered as a serious threat to the nation. This means that if you are, for example, a person who doesn't really matter or who is not able to express his pain, your pain is then disregarded because it doesn't meet the new standards of the law that side government has set. This is something that's extremely harmful. Because number one, we think that that's when you disregard the most vulnerable people in society, and number two, you don't give them an alternative to turn to under side government's house. Now, why is Hannah's alternatives specifically beneficial in this motion, right? Because number one, we told you that we would most likely have specific cyberbullying laws. It might not be as severe as assault, but we think that we are able to compromise on certain areas and find some gray areas where we are able to judge or able to base certain threats on. Secondly, we told you that education by MCMC, for example, going to schools, propagating messages of bullying and all these things, are most likely going to be effective because they target grassroots level of individuals who are on the ground. This means that your average teenagers and all these things are most likely going to be molded by these ideas and understand how bad cyberbullying is, which happens on a very natural level. Third thing we suggested was rehabilitation, because we believe that these kind of problems exist from individuals who exist on the ground, who have no other ways of voicing out their concerns, or for example, who have no other ways of releasing that kind of anger. We think that rehabilitation is the best form. Before I go on to my fourth one, yes.
We can have rehabilitation as well. We can crack down on grassroots as well. The debate is specifically about whether we should classify cyberbullying as assault. We can have all your alternatives. Please engage with it.
That's true. But for example, ladies and gentlemen, are you then going to prosecute a child under the Criminal Act simply to throw him to prison and all these things for a general comment that he's made? I think that the proportionality that you have to look at is that how severe are these comments and how are you going to take them into account? I think that this is something that side government doesn't do. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, what have we told you so far from side opposition? Number one, we told you that the main root of the problem should be tackled first in terms of correcting the kind of laws that we have for cyberbullying and establishing proper laws. But secondly, we also think that education and rehabilitation are the best form of ways to target these laws, and we would much prefer that over criminal assault. But the second thing we told you very specifically is that subjectivity is something that's extremely hard to be objectified, and especially when even if you objectify it, you then place unfair standards to individuals to go up and maintain these standards for you. We are very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much, Giri, for that speech. Now, the next speaker, the government whip, his name is Hilmi Yazid. He is 22 years old. He is currently studying law at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. And when we asked him, what's something interesting about you that you like the audience to know? He said, I have a passion for interior design. With that being said, I'd like to invite the Honorable Government Whip. Here.
Hello, testing. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine your child, your daughter, the person sitting next to you right now, currently living within the cyberspace, most of their lives integrated, their friends, education to some extent. Even currently, schools are trying to implement education through social media, where things like homeworks or things, for example, online classes are done there, and that space that your child interacts in is unsafe. Because in any moment, an individual, be it man or woman, be it young or old, can have the capacity to do things, for example, injure, emotionally, doing things, for example, calling out names that oftentimes degrade the dignity of your child, by calling them things, for example, fat, or calling them ugly, oftentimes translating to, yes, I agree, maybe emotional distress, but oftentimes are highly attached to actual physical harms at the end of the day. This is the world that the current generation has to live in. This is the reality that side opposition ignored, and this is the reality that side government is trying to change. There are two questions in my speech. Number one, in principle, should we acknowledge cyberbullying as assault and whether or not that is a just metric for us to use? And number two, whether or not the end world would be a more preferable world. And I'm going to directly engage with the alternative opposition suggested, which is that they will have their own specific cyberbullying laws, but might not necessarily be as severe as assault within government's world, why that is a less preferable world in terms of the outcome that it creates. First question, whether in principle it should be assault. The first thing opposition suggested is that as a result of you unable to quantify the actual act of cyberbullying, you ought not to actually classify it as assault. Giri gave you reasons as to suggest that currently there are a spectrum of ways in which individuals cyberbully, and hence it means that it is hard for you to quantify which one is an actual cyberbullying. Examples such as criticism to flat earthers. Let's analyze this, right? Number one, we say cyberbullying ought to be a direct and active attempt of causing distress, or doing things like, for example, ad hominem attacks, or personal attacks, or things like, for example, physical appearances. It's things like, for example, non-constructive criticism that oftentimes directly is with the intent of causing harm. They can't say you can't quantify intent because oftentimes intent is based on things, for example, your very action. So for example, if you actively call an individual name that oftentimes is a direct attack to their personal identity, you can imply intent based on the act in which they do. So they can't say you can't have intent in that particular regard. But second is, when it comes to criticism against flat earthers, I think you can draw a clear distinction onto the differences between an actual criticism and an actual attack onto a human being. I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a problem. The third clarification then is this suggestion that we are also going to prosecute children. The first is children can't be prosecuted is protected under the law. They can say they do not be able to have the capacity to actually act in criminal intent. Hence, it means that there are, this is not a particular issue. In addition to that, right, most cyberbullying cases oftentimes are done with individuals with power. And oftentimes this feeling that you have power oftentimes translates beyond things that become the school. Because oftentimes even individuals who are within the working class are also affected by cyberbullying at the end of the day. Hence, in conclusion, there is a clear ability for us to delineate between the differences between actual criticism and cyber attacks. This concern isn't much of a problem. Second, let's look at the biggest contention opposition has, which is, what about your ability to quantify emotional distress? The first of which is that I would suggest, and it's pretty clear coming from the entire three speakers of this particular government, is that there is a clear ability for you to quantify emotional distress. Oftentimes, emotional distress comes with some attachment of actual physical harm that can then translate to emotional distress. How does it look like? What we analyze in government side is a full spectrum of how cyberbullying attacks occur. So number one, even if it is the most subtle of threats, or even if it's the most subtle of cyberbullying, oftentimes individuals do things like, for example, lock themselves up in their rooms, knowing that it's their friends who are actually attacking them personally. Oftentimes they deny their ability to go to work. Oftentimes it's things like, for example, feeling like the public space that we share is an unsafe space, and oftentimes actively degrade and actively remove themselves from public spaces. Oftentimes, these lead to actual things like financial harm. Oftentimes, when individuals feel like they can't go to work or can't perform at work, oftentimes this means that things are, for example, them getting shouted by their bosses, oftentimes them unable to go to their second job that oftentimes other individuals have to pursue, means that they lose things like, for example, money. So even if emotional distress initially is very hard to quantify, oftentimes as a result of it being attached to things, for example, actual physical harms, is why we are able to quantify emotional distress at the end of the day. In addition, right, if Hannah's characterization is true, that most cyberbullying attacks are done by anonymous people, then Sira's argument as to why it just makes it even worse becomes true. To suggest that things, for example, it is a random individual who's doing it, means that it could be your friends, it could be a random stranger that has been stalking your child, like coming back from school. It could be a person that you think you can trust, or is someone that you have loved from the very beginning. It makes it even worse at the end of the day. In conclusion, cyberbullying is akin to assault because of the extent of the harm that it creates, and oftentimes it deters individuals from actually living a good life. Oftentimes it is a direct attack to human dignity. For that principal reason alone, it should be classified as assault. But second, what about the world that is created after recognizing it as assault? Opposition suggested you want to have their own particular laws in order for it to become as strict. But then Giri said, we're fine if it's not as severe. Let's analyze why it is harmful. The first, we suggest to the government that the laws have to be severe as humanly possible in order for us to curb the problem that is extremely systemic. Why? Number one, Hans get tries to you why oftentimes social media is extremely intertwined with our lives. Businesses and your livelihoods, the income that you oftentimes get are intertwined and are on social media for most individuals. Number two, social interactions which are of a similar degree to the interactions individuals have on status quo on the ground with physical interactions are also similar at the end of the day. The conclusion to this argument is simple. A world where it is not as severe does not protect as much individuals as opposed to the world where we make it as severe within outside the house. We think we prefer a world where individuals feel safe in a space that is supposed to be free and inclusive for most individuals. For all of those reasons, proposed.
Thank you very much, Hilmi, for that speech. Now, the next person and the last speaker for this debate is Kimberly Justine Petju. And she is 20 years old, she's studying law, and she is currently studying at Taylor's University Lakeside campus. And when we asked something interesting about you that you'd like the audience to know, she said, to avoid cyberbullying, I rarely converse with people over social media. So basically, I don't reply people. With that being said, I'd like to invite the last speaker of the day, the opposition whip.
I recognize that cyberbullying is inherently horrible. I think it's a horrendous act, and I regret that this is the world is one that practices that act. But you cannot let the side of opposition get away with this. They still must answer very specific things. Now, whether or not the law should be objective, and whether or not the punishment in and of itself is one that is proportionate to the crime that was practiced in society. So you cannot let intuition get to you. Whilst it is true that this harm is one that is horrible, we must remain objective in regards to whether or not the law is dealt with it properly when when punishing it with criminal assault. I also don't think that the side of proposition has been very charitable to our case. I think at many points in time we talked to you about why there has been many discussion as to why cyberbullying or the act towards like multimedia communication is being amended to be catered towards cyberbullying laws. I also think they don't take into account that, for example, cyberstalking is already being recognized, and that harms that come out post cyberbullying that actually cause personal and actual injury is what is already recognized by the law. So you cannot take into our case consideration not realizing the society that we live in and the world that Malaysia has already reached. I'll talk to you about two things. The first thing I want to talk to you about is whether or not cyberbullying ought to be constituted as criminal assault, and secondly, in which world do we better curb criminal assault better. In the first one, in regards to whether or not it can constitute criminal assault, there are two standards that proposition propose to prove this. The first thing is that there is very high chance for it to cause emotional injury, which causes actual injury later on. But thirdly is that there is some level of third-party harm that is quite guaranteed. So these are two things I want to talk about. The first is that I think that Malaysian law is highly dependent on the penal code. Every part of our law is on its derivative of the penal code. So the guidelines that set within that are ones that are really very very rigid and very, in fact, very specific in what the guidelines ought to be. I'm unsure as to how they're going to accommodate this, given that they still choose to remain to the three standards in what criminal assault ought to be. I'm going into this further, but in essence, I just want to show that at no point in time do they show that an individual or a victim of cyberbullying can fit within those three requirements and can prove that they can achieve closure or remorse within those things. The second thing I want to say is that I think this motion specifically talks about having no injury. I think I want to talk about very specific groups of individuals. Oftentimes, these group of individuals are kids, young children that go online and say, things that they don't intend to cause very specific harm. If these are the group of individuals that you want to talk about, bullying within schools and just perpetrators that are within that young mindset, I don't think you fix these individuals. I think there are two things that might happen. The first is that I don't think it's very effective at all. In Sila's speech, she already mentioned that this culture is one that's already being mean. In Twitter, that there is some gratification if you are inherently funny that can also be mean and co-opt those two benefits together. So if it is within a mindset problem, I don't think curbing it like criminal assault is what can effectively fix that mindset, especially since they're young children and they probably don't understand the law as effectively as others. But secondly, I think there is a worse of harm. If you prioritize changing that, if you prioritize punishing individuals in comparison to changing that mindset, I think you cause a continuous toxic cycle towards bullying. You better perpetrate that harm because these individuals that bully don't understand what they're doing wrong. They think that they're just saying things that come out of their brain based on intuition or based on whatever they felt was necessarily true. If that is the case, I think you push individuals or you push bullies to continuously bully more when they grow up, and I'm unsure you change that mindset if you're not willing to prioritize rehabilitation or anything else. But then they said, it's okay, we can do both. We can punish individuals as well as rehabilitate. I don't think that's very true because rehabilitation is a process of understanding what you did wrong. If you punish individuals, oftentimes they will retaliate and they probably will not respond very well. So I'm unsure as to how you can co-opt these two benefits. It must be either or. But even if you don't buy that, I think it's exceptionally fair for us to show that it's extremely disproportionate to the crime that you committed. If there is no injury cost, and very hard to prove that there was intent, to prove that the increased criminal assault is not only disproportionate to the law, but also disproportionate to the perpetrator. In law, we talk about the victim, but we also talk about the perpetrator, and ensuring that the law is not as very fair in protecting both individuals, but also fair in ensuring that the punishment that we ought to put on you is one that is justified. in conclusion, I don't think they can prove it increased criminal assault. Secondly, even if they do, I think they only do it in terms of the victim. They don't talk about the perpetrator that the law also ought to protect. But before that,
So children on our side can learn the consequences when they see adults themselves facing consequences in court. But if they see adults get away in your world, then that's when they think that, oh, this is fine, it's okay because they have no repercussions. How does this then change on your side?
so if under your side, the only way for you to teach children is to show that every other person can be put into jail, then I think to some extent you are abusing the idea of deterrence to say that you should always, in any circumstances, punish individuals at the furthest extent to ensure they don't do that crime anymore. That is something that is not practiced in society, nor is it practiced within the law. I think some idea of proportionality is also a principle that is prioritized. The second thing I want to say is that in what way can we curb cyberbullying better? Because I want to posit that at many points in the side of opposition, we claim that it's very hard for us to show that criminal assault can be achieved. I think in a world in which you can achieve it, I think the first thing is that standard is very hard for victims to actually achieve. So if it is true that it's a three-pronged system, the first one being apprehension of that crime, secondly, the immediate effect, and thirdly, the likelihood of that crime. I think victims within status quo that go through cyberbullying find it very hard to prove that these three things are inherently very true. Because comments that exist within status quo, oftentimes things are that it is inherently true. It is against your personal identity, and it's against your personal capacity to, identity to perceive yourself. So if it is things like saying your particular race is one that is harmful, or a particular race is one that is of specific stereotypes, then those are the things that cannot fall within the three-pronged system that the South government wants to push. So even if you have victims on your side, these victims cannot access the closure and proper mechanisms to fix their problem on your side of the house. This becomes a lot worse. I think a couple of things happen to the victims. I think number one, being traumatized, you have to go through court proceedings to try and prove that you are right, but then being denied of that closure, being denied that your perpetrator is one that's being taken to jail. I think a lot of times victims on the left side of the house will suffer and not get the closure that they want. But I think more importantly, within society right now, at least there is some semblance of awareness, at least there is some semblance of what education systems ought to prioritize. Your parents, your education systems, your governments, these are stakeholders who can actively contribute towards preventing this problem. If it means checking out your child more, if it means being a good friend and telling people that cyberbullying isn't okay, or a specific mindset inherently isn't okay, I think that you deter, or you take away, or you induce complacency in these particular actors because you say, it's alright, the law can fix it, and the law is one that will do X number of things, so it's not going to be as important. The law can do a number of things, changing mindsets and changing the way that we perceive the world, or just inherently ensuring that we act as decent human beings is one that you cannot punish individuals into believing, but it's one that you must teach, and it's one that you must foster and guide individuals to.
Thank you very much, Opposition Whip. And with that, the debate has successfully concluded. Let's give everyone a round of applause for a great debate. I'd like to invite all 6 speakers to cross the floor, shake hands. Oh. All right. Before we end the debate, though, a very interesting point in this debate is we would like to ask the audience member if you have any questions for the debaters that they have debated. So feel free to ask a question. They'll be more than happy to answer you. No one? There must be something about the arguments that they've made, the rebuttals that they've made, maybe some concept that will explain that you're not sure of. Yes.
My name is Annabelle, and I'm from Malaysia. You guys were talking a lot about young children, and they are the main demographic for a lot of cyberbullying. And you were talking about their deterrence, but a lot of young children don't look at the news or specifically at court cases where people would get, like, people would go to jail or be issued a law to go to jail. So how would this exactly be a deterrent for a lot of children who probably don't know the law in the first place?
Website. I think that because, even though, the children themselves are not going to jail, specifically because they are protected by the law, but I think that in circumstances where children are always on social media, therefore there's always going to be news about these things, and they will be normalized the idea that, okay, I see this man has been bullying this one person, and then now he's in court because of it. I think those are obvious signs as to how we also learn about very obvious laws, such as that's how we children, when we were kids, we know that murder is wrong, right? Because we see people getting dragged into court, we see the news, we see our parents tell us. So I think these are also the ways in which children can become more aware of like there are repercussions to your actions. So I think that in itself is like a very like subtle way in a sense in order for children to understand the law, but also like all the existing like side opposition also said the same thing, such as like campaigns, like making sure that children know all these things, and like making sure that the culture of bullying is something that is like people are aware about. I think all these things can exist with the existence of the law as well.
All right, thank you very much for that. Does anyone else have a question? Yes.
My name is Dave. I cannot understand what is the emotional harm when you read something or someone says something to you. As a parent, if someone tell your kids, you are fat, you are ugly, will you go to sue the other person or you go to teach your kid, not that you are ugly and fat, is that they don't educate enough to appreciate you. So which one you choose? So what is emotional harm in this case?
So I think a couple of things. The first thing is, I think, so first is very subjective. So I think you can still teach your kids that they are not fat, they are not ugly, and how to react. But it doesn't mean that some people who have gone through a lot of harm in their life won't feel very hurt. So if you were to call me fat and ugly, it's not something that I feel okay with that. But there are some kids that have gone through trauma with regards to that when sometimes they have horrible parents that tell them that they are ugly and they are fat. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that emotional damage is very subjective, which is why we should have the opportunity to go to court and see for which instances we should prosecute these individuals. But secondly, like I said, I do think the parenting part, like I'm sure you're great parents. I think that's very good. Like I think definitely you should teach your kids that those things are not true and it's based on the police insecurity. But I still think that we need to do it. And the last thing is, I agree that emotional damage is very subjective. Like I agree with the op to some degree, and I agree with you. But I think in court, like for the past 200, 300 years, we still have emotional damages in a lot of cases, like abuse, or if you break like Sila was just telling me, if you break a marriage contract and someone buys rings and all that, you don't just sue them for financial compensation, you can also sue them for emotional damage for suddenly leaving you before the marriage, after you sign the contract. So I think all these things just mean that as a society, we have accepted that emotions can be very important and can be very different for people, and we should also try quantifying that even if that's hard. But yeah, thanks.
Oh, one more thing to add on. In today's cyberspace, there's a lot of comment that is not even come from human, it's come from the artificial intelligence. So how do you justify the emotional harm? It's like playing a game. If the game shoot you, will you feel like I'm dying?
I mean, that's completely fair. I mean, I think it's sometimes very hard to regulate. But I mean, I guess I don't know. I think in situations where it's a computer that maybe makes a comment, I don't think you can prosecute anything for that. So I think those cases just become moot. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a very separate intellectual discussion on whether we can prosecute AI. Perhaps we should prosecute the people that created the AI to program them like that. I don't know, but I think that's a very interesting and separate discussion that we probably should have one day.
Much for that. We have time for one last question. Would anyone like to ask a question? Yes.
Hi, my name is Kevin. So today's motion is about cyberbullying should be punished like criminal assault, even when there is no injury.
So this is the top rack. Cards here are yours, Pak General Counsel. Bawah ni dia.
So to add on to the third speaker of the opposition, under Penal Code Section 351 of assault, mere words do not amount to assault, but only physical gestures and preparation to harm someone is considered assault. So in this case, it will be taken into account of like physical contact, and that is not possible in cyberspace. So how would the motion stand.
All right. So the first is that yes, I agree the penal code states as such. However, um, mere words does not necessarily mean. Can you see me? All right. So it's not just mere words, but rather the words indicate a threat. So for example, there's a legal case that happened in the late. There was a legal case that happened in the 90s where a guy says, if it wasn't for a size 5, I would have killed you. Right? These are mere words, but it was considered assault as a result of the word being a direction towards a threat of actual harm. So that's only one part of the statute that ought to be read with things like cases to describe it. Hence, the policies can pass in government insofar as the cyberbullying threats, even if are mere words, are words to direct towards a threat of actual harm. So for example, if I cyberbully you to say, if you don't take out your account now, I will go to your house and kill you or beat you up because I know where you live. Even though these are mere words, but as a result of me feeling as if the person giving the threat can reasonably execute that threat, those mere words direct towards a threat of actual harm.
Also, like I think to add on, like because of how accessible oftentimes a lot of the information is, maybe you yourself don't tell where you go to school, but other kids can sometimes go like, oh, I know this kid is in my school, it's a DBJ, for example. So all of these things can cause you even more reasonable harm, when you feel more paranoid, because you know that people can leak information about you, and that like the likelihood of harm happening is existing. So I think that's why it can also equate to an assault in certain cases.
Also, one more thing to add on. I think everyone is like focusing on specific cases, so whether it's words or whether it's computers that make it. But I think that's the very reason we have courts, right? So each case is very subjective, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't have a law that allows us a platform to prosecute individuals when necessary. So it doesn't mean that every case that we consider cyberbullying will be prosecuted. It just means that these cases can now be taken to court where judges can then fairly decide whether it constitutes cyberbullying. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much to all the debaters. We won't be taking any more questions. Before we proceed, I just want to ask members of the audience first, what do you think of the debate? Someone said excellent. Can I? Oh, you said, why do you think it's excellent? A lot of ideas. Okay. All right. Any other comments about the debate? All right, thank you. It's interesting for me to note that members of the audience does not have any questions for the opposition side. And I wonder why, but just to make this thing a bit more interesting, I'm going to ask you to vote who you think won the debate. Okay, I will ask you to raise your hands to vote for one side, and because there are only two sides in this debate, obviously you can only raise your hand once. Is that okay? Can I get an okay? All right, amazing. Okay, so don't worry about the judging bit. This is like completely up to you, your own opinion. Okay, are you ready to vote? Okay. For those who are in favor of side government, hands up. Okay, we have about, I don't know, is that what, 10, 12, 15?
Oh, wait.
Oh, hands once counted. Okay, more. Okay. Who thinks side opposition won the debate? Oh, okay, then round of applause to side government for winning this public debate. Thank you so much to all the debaters who may cross the floor and shake hands. To everyone who's here, we have another session coming up. Shake hands. We have another session coming up. It's called Youth Manifesto, and this is very interesting. So what we're going to have is